Stuff that's important is always making sure that you set the motion so that your name gets in the minutes. That's other clue. All right, so with that, we will have a roll call. I believe. I'm calling the meeting to order. We will have roll call.
Ms. Bailey here. Dr. Cable. Ms. Coleman
Here.
Dr. Davis. Mr. Estes. Dr. Henderson. Ms. Lawson here. Laser Talbert. Ms. Merrick. Ms. Cooper. Here. You have 4, which does not represent a quorum, so you need to go to an executive committee as the agenda states.
All right, so we will now move into an executive committee. And next we have introductions and announcements. Great. Mine here says congratulations.
Yes, we're congratulating. Andrew, are you there today?
Yes, ma'am. Hey, sorry about that.
We are congratulating you, Andrew, for earning 2 certifications on the full stack software engineer path. And so we are extremely proud of Andrew. Andrew does, of course, is the voice behind our meeting, helps us with that. He's also a principal with our website, with our Lex automated chatbot, and we anticipate he will be doing even more with us as we explore more ways to use AI as an exponent, if you would. And really what we mean by that is to amplify, right, the efforts of our in-person staff using technology so that we can expand the help that we give individuals and allow the folks that are on the phones or in person to be able to deal with the complex cases. So we are very proud of you, Andrew.
Oh, thank you.
Approval of the minutes, March 3rd, 2023. Got time to read them. So I will entertain a motion. We have a motion.
I'll second.
Second, so who's the second? For the minutes be approved as stated. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Moving on. Public comment.
None at this time.
Thank you. Program updates.
My fault, we had to approve the minutes.
We did.
Okay, I'll see. Thanks.
Barry was a very made it. Dr. Barry made the motion. Christie made the second.
Okay.
There was no corrections. All right. I'm on Louisiana Savings Program. I'm Ms. Underwood.
Good morning. You'll notice these 2 pictures up here, and thankfully this was 2021 statements from last year. You'll notice all those boxes were just sheets of paper, reams of paper, statements for start, and then the bottom was not all, but some of the statements that that our staff had to hand fold. The reason for this was that state mail did not have the capacity to be able to prepare these statements for mailing, so therefore that fell on start staff, about 7 of us at that point, that we mailed, as you can tell, 8,911 statements to 1,767 account owners. It was a major undertaking, as you can imagine. Well, this year, Alice Brown and her team, along with Terry Jameson, who is our lead start programmer, worked with state mail to have all but 9 account owner statements mailed this year by them. Those 9 were sent over, and I personally prepared those in 9 manila envelopes, which took all of about, I don't know, 15 minutes maybe. So needless to say, we are extremely excited. Alex, thank you again for this. It's made a huge difference for my team and the amount of time that we have to devote to other projects. You get the next slide. And of course, this is our monthly, this is the end of February, number of active accounts as well as the investment balances for each.
Terry, didn't you all make some other improvements on the addresses? I worked with you all.
Right, I'm getting to that.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Also, to Dr. Butte's point, this year for start statements, IT put together and programmed Smart Addresser. What this does is before the statements are mailed, it checks the address that we have on file. Therefore, we're not sending statements out to those who are no longer living there. So that saved us approximately 15,000 pages for over 3,000 account owners. So we've also been working with those folks. We sent a mass email to them to let them know, hey, you're not getting your statement and this is why. Please reach out to us. Let's get this fixed for you. And we can either mail you a statement or your statement is available online when you sign on to your account. So that made a huge difference as in the return mail. I'm already seeing that we're getting a minimal amount of return mail for this. So it was a great investment to get that software to take care of that. Also, in addition, we have requested all of the 2022 interest checks for the closed accounts. And that was done as of 2 days ago by our disbursement team, which consists of Bush Harris and Mariniki from Yad. In my 19 years here, this is the first time that this has been completed in this short period of time. So shout out to the disbursement team in their vigilance to get those funds out to the account owners on a very, very timely basis. I know it sounds like we do a lot of hard work at start, and we do. But we also have some fun. And for St. Patrick's Day, we had a snack day, which we all enjoy. You can look at us and tell. But Bush Harris put together Start Jeopardy. And we all had a great time playing with that. You say you'll take for 200, you'll ask for this and you say, and I play it, but I forfeited my prize to the next person. So anyway, but it was a whole lot of fun for the team as well as a learning experience for each of the team members. So, and she's also put together one for Easter, which we're doing our Easter next week because this week's been crazy. We're doing our Easter next week, and she put together Start Family Feud. So I'll let you know how that plays out. We're all excited, and it certainly increases the morale of the team members when you work that hard, but you do take a little time to have some fun as well. So
this is just I don't want anybody to put a lot of time on this. And I would be curious how the state along this 529 months, how Louisiana compares to other states. So I think we have one of the better 529 plans. And are we population or something where you could compare another state with a population our size? How we're doing this? I think that might be revealing something. I don't know. I'm just curious. But we have a lot of work.
And I'll tell you, just off the cuff, yes. But because we limit to Louisiana residents, it kind of skews the numbers. Okay. A lot of the other programs will accept basically anyone. However, because we do the earning enhancements, we limit ours to Louisiana residents. So therefore, the numbers are not, it's almost not comparable because we don't allow nationwide.
No, I just wondered if you could look at that. We are investing in parents are investing in so, but you can't.
Not on an account basis and a dollar amount basis, but I'm sure we can certainly put together to look under other measurements.
You probably have was just curious, but yeah, it seems to me, this is we are doing very well.
Absolutely, and when you look at other
People would think this, that would be my guess, that the fifth would be we're not.
you know, when you look at the dollar amount, the investment performance, absolutely. When you look at the state matching funds, because most states do not do that. There again, that's another feather in our hat. And there have been times in the past that we've had the top cap rating. They call it a cap rating for savingforcollege.com and that entity. We do come up high just because of what we do offer and the tax deduction. So the state tax deduction as well. So
I think that for a long time, and I haven't really seen it a lot since COVID, we were almost like at the perfect, like the 5-star or 5 cap rating. The only thing that prevented us from doing that was because we did not accept out-of-state residents. And of course, they give the caveat that of course you wouldn't if you're going to pay them to save plus do the tax benefits. So, and also you're ranked highly because we don't charge fees other than that, that's what it is. So again, it's a very, very good value, but that is what stops us from being at that top level as you compare it to other states.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. Any other questions or curiosity?
thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, next we have college access and communication.
So, for our virtual office hours, we are continuing with virtual office hour sessions. Of course, these and virtual events both started up back in 2020 when the COVID came upon us. And so we continue to do the virtual office hour sessions. As of today, there are 2,447 virtual office hours that have been conducted. You probably remember that MJ Foster was the latest virtual office hour session that we added to the lineup. And then as far as virtual events are concerned, again, we just had our top processing webinars and reminded our counselors that even though, COVID is behind us at this point, we still do continue to offer virtual events. And we do have schools that continue to take advantage of that. So today we have completed 809 virtual events. We've done some professional development. The vast majority of that has been through ATGO and NCAN. And then we also did a webinar from NAS, and we also shared that on our social media accounts. That was one basically that talked about ABLE and Social Security benefits. And so that's something that we were able to benefit from. And then NAS also requested that the partners share that information with the public so that they can also be informed on how Social Security benefits and ABLE work together. So this is Mr. Darius Furlong and Miss Isabel Reyes. Darius is Field Outreach, Izzy is CAS. And so they are at the Aspire Career Awareness Fair that was held by EBR. And so this was held at Southern University for our 9th grade students. And so you see Izzy there with Darius. Izzy is actually our freshman by LOSFA college advocate. So this was a great event for her to attend with Darius. And so they were able to implement some of the elements that we used during Fly Tour, which is financial literacy for youth. And so the students had the opportunity to kind of play some games, answer some questions, and get some lots of swag from us. This is from the Youth Challenge Program browse session. And so with YCP, they were at the Farville Center, which is Gillis Lawn. There are 3 different camps basically across the state of Louisiana where they do challenge program. And so They were able to help the cadets that were there. One of the really neat things that happened at this particular route session is that one of our graphic designers, Kilanda, actually was down here a few minutes ago, bringing around to something. She was there taking photographs, and one of the cadets was actually interested in graphic design. And so even though Kilanda is not, what you would traditionally call part of the outreach team, this was a perfect example of match fit in action, and basically just kind of reinforces the fact that even if you aren't traditionally in the field, that everybody at the agency knows what part they play in the agency. And so she was able to give that student next steps, talk about, this is the types of educational requirements that you're going to have. And so the student was really excited when they left there, that they were able to actually speak to somebody in their field. So hats off to Kalanda for that. Our college affordability work group met last month, and so that is co-led by myself and Elizabeth Bentley Smith with the Louisiana Board of Regents. And so when we met last month, one of the things that we did is kind of start to go into the project mode, is that we looked at some of the other financial literacy programs from some of the other states. A lot of the states are moving towards kind of making this a requirement for their students in high school. So we kind of took a look at that, to kind of look at different structures, just kind of to get some ideas for what we could use, what we couldn't use, etc. We also narrowed down some target audiences and some financial literacy topics that we think may be important for the students of Louisiana moving forward. And then we also had our NAVGAP Power Hour, and so it was myself discussing LOSFA FAFSA outreach efforts. Stephanie Markham from LBOE also joined us to speak on the FAFSA mandate. Christy Lawson also joined us to discuss strategies that she used at her high school at Jewel Sumner. So very robust discussion during that Power Hour, and then Texas was also present as well to discuss their recent mandate. We had a MJ Foster Promise orientation. This is the second one that has been done. And of course, we have a team of, it was one of our cast members, April Smith, Brittany Terrio from SG, and Miss Martha Bearden from Student Engagement. Three of them together work collaboratively to host these student orientations for those MJ Foster students. And so for this one, they normally email students and say, hey, we're having an orientation. They also piggyback those emails with text messages. Incredibly effective at getting those students to sign up. So they had 144 attendees, and some of those were LOSFA and post-secondary representatives, so that those students had the chance to connect with those post-secondary institutions like in a breakout session. And so they also did a survey, and 29% of the survey participants were first-time attendees to one of the orientations, and 100% of the survey participants indicated that they would recommend this orientation to other MJ Foster applicants. And also, continuing with MJ Foster, we sent out notices to over 1,000 eligible students for non-use of funds. So these were students that were eligible for MJ Foster funding, but then they were canceled at some point because the MJ Foster funds weren't utilized. And so again, this is basically where they contacted these students, the same list of students that they sent these notices out to. They contacted those students and also sent them an invitation to the MJ Foster orientation. And they will be also having another orientation this month. And so again, they will extend that to these students so that they will be aware of the application cycle that's upcoming for MJ Foster for the 2023-24 cycle.
Continuing our communications efforts, LOSFA has partnered with the Center Department of Children and Family Services in order to promote staff benefits. So we posted this on social media and also sent out through constant contact the toolkit to help promote this program to the TRIO programs, chief student affairs officers, and chief academic officers, financial aid staff at all of our institutions, as well as the Council of Student Body Presidents. We also put this information in the recent Council of Student Body Presidents report from LOSFA as well, LOSFA update. So hopefully we have some student buy-in to help promote this as well. In the toolkit, that we sent out information to, it also included a another toolkit of other benefit programs to students, such as the child tax credit, the affordable activity program, Medicaid, a special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children, better known as WIC. So there are other programs that we continue to promote as well that are on this list that we'll be able to provide you an update on our next advisory. For social media, since our last advisory board have had 178 accounts. So our popular posts that we have on Twitter now scheduled for each student meeting happens. We can post on our social media platforms to help participation, as well as posts about CCAM. For Instagram, we had a student help post, a tops notice with ACT, CCAM, and then our 5-point match information, which was the most popular there. Facebook, the scholarship post continues to be our most popular post on that platform. And then we also saw a lot of traction with our tops notice for the ACT information, as well as our student network groups. For partnerships, we had a fantastic meeting yesterday. Actually, we have some updates since we put this information together. We have basically half of the year planned out, and some other things in the works too. But what we're going to do in Oshner. The big health event that was scheduled for June, we found out yesterday, has been moved to October. So what we have scheduled so far, hospital week and events with others in order to promote LOSFA's programs to help with FAFSA completion, college applications, as well to promote our Louisiana 529 savings programs. In June, we'll be connecting with the 65+ groups that they have in order to promote start accounts to grandparents. And then they also want us to present at their STEM Pathways camp that we have to parents and students. They're going to connect us over the summer in July with all of their pediatric patients. A back to school event in August, Grandparents' Day in September, and then the big health event that has been to October. So we're very, very excited about what we'll be doing with Oshner and hopefully connecting not just to the headquarters here in Baton Rouge, but all of their 35,000+ employees as well. So Heidi and Trey, Oshner have been fantastic partners, and Anna, who is our public information officer for community outreach, has done an outstanding job as well. Also, for the first time since the pandemic began, we will be participating in a grant event as well with a women's hospital. Our start savings accounts, which will give an update after that takes place in June. And then for part of Able, the Louisiana Department of Health, Anna was able to make a connection there. And we are now providing information on this program to their quarterly providers. They meet quarterly, and so we want to make sure that all of those providers are aware of the program. We're also going to participate in educational webinars for LDH staff. Any questions at all?
I have a comment. I'm sure there's, yeah, this is not something that I want someone to do. But there ought to be a way eventually as you move through this that you can report back to other entities on how many people you actually do. They're not, you know, or how, what the numbers are before you start. I mean, this is really, I'm so very impressed with the staff, the student graphic design, all of this. There's a couple really good messages that need to get to other people when they think about putting money into education. But this is why you do it, and you like that. Some way to track that, or just something and say we know that this is what. Because you know that there's always other companies, everything goes down to money sometimes.
Yeah, we can certainly.
It is just, I just don't, I would be hard pressed in my experience to think of other state agencies that have this great accomplishment. I can have you all for it.
Aren't you working on an enlightenment newsletter to be able to send to stakeholders?
Oh, Elevate, yes,
Elevate, okay.
yes. So that is for raising quality of life through access to education. So that is giving updates and information to policymakers. It's pretty clear.
And you never know, just your example of a student talking to your coworker. Someone will read it and they can pass this along to a constituent who needs to come, just like somebody runs into Christie or Bailey or whatever, or Amy, and then you've made another contact, another, been helpful.
I have a comment and then I have a question. Comment is the social media that you guys do with the scholarships. I had a real life example happen yesterday. I had someone that moved from out of the area. They were just, questions in general about scholarships. And so I immediately said, are you on Instagram? And I was able to just direct her immediately because the student is going to be a junior. And the scholarships that we get, we send out, but it's usually seniors, and they'll send it to us directly. And we don't get a lot of them. But to know that every month you guys are doing this, so it's like, hey, it could be any age range, check this. And then from there, that y'all might recommend something that goes somewhere else. So I appreciate that. I was able to, yesterday afternoon, you know anything? Yes, I do. I know of one right now that's reputable that is going to, vet all of these. And it's not something that you go Google search and it could have been expired and, was a right time event. The second thing is this SNAPS benefit promotion. This is the first time I've heard about this. Is this a new thing or is this a new push or what's happening with this? Because it might benefit some of my students that I just hadn't.
So the toolkit is really focused on college students.
Okay.
So that's what we were sent. They reached out to Ms. Malvo in student engagement, and she sort of put the rest of the LOSFA team in. So there is on their website general information about not college students, but anyone else who could be eligible for that. So they approached us, I think, in January, then recently. So trying to get that out as possible, but I can forward that on to you because there may be some information from that even geared towards college students.
Well, I'll have college students call me. Do you know of anything?
Yeah.
That's more what I'm asking. It's not even maybe not my students, current students, but they're going to be going to college and hey, here's just something that I just heard about, just to kind of let them know. I had a kid that graduated 5 years ago that just called me this week, and so it just out of the blue.
There are social media posts, there's a poster, there's video, and there is a form letter that you can use to send out your own.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you.
Ms. Malvo is going to join us remotely. She attended a rural life, a conference on college access in rural communities. Unfortunately, the weather detained her, so she's caught a flight. And Ms. Malvo, are you standing by?
I am on ground. Thank you very much, Dr. Boutte. Good morning, everyone. And again, I should not offer any apologies for why, and I'm not joining you in person, but I do thank you for the privilege of remoting in. As Dr. Boutte said, I am fresh off of a rural summit sponsored by the Partnerships for Rural Impact, which is a consortium of rural serving entities to address the needs of rural students from the K-12 space to post-secondary. So I was very privileged to be a part of that conversation. Before I get into my update for the student engagement, I definitely want to expound further on Shane's sharing and answer to your question, Ms. Lawson, regarding the SNAP benefits. It is, as he did indicate, it was targeted to college students to make them aware of their eligibility. That was expanded during the public health emergency. However, that is coming to a pause or end probably in May 11th. So nationally, there's a big push to get students enrolled now before that expires, because if they even enroll now, even though May 11th is next month, they will be able to access these SNAP benefits beyond the expiration of that for their next redetermination date, which could be another 6 months. So that's why DCFS reached out to LOSFA, and as Shane indicated, it's been a cross-divisional effort to communicate promotional strategies on how we can get this information to our college students. And as Shane alluded, this covers 5 different, and I would call them public assistance programs: the SNAP, the WIC, the tax credit, even the affordable band program, affordable connectivity program that the Biden-Harris been pushing. Again, we've been pushing all of these in our monthly student network groups, making sure students were aware and then encouraging them to be the purveyor of this information by sharing it with their peers. So grateful that LOSFA was able to promote this to the degree they did. As you're seeing on our first slide, a summary of our activities with our student network groups for the month of March. Again, it's not inclusive because at the time of our reporting, we still have about 3 or 4 other groups that may not have met. But some things I want to highlight is that as we are growing in our post-secondary transition network group, of which Ms. Lawson, we so welcome your assistance there still. In the secondary realm, we are expanding our reach into schools that we may not have never served before, whether it be public, private, parochial, and so we're really excited about the connects that are made there. When you see the post-secondary participation, of course, we have our usual numbers of public state institutions and our 2-year programs. But I know you guys are wondering, why is Fix on this screen? Why is Stephen F. Austin on the screen? We have students who are connected to Louisiana who are attending these universities out of state, and their peers are hearing about our network group. And so they're asking to be a part. And again, this is part of my reverse migration plug here. So this is why you're seeing those universities listed there. But the Fisk University student, he joined us as a senior in high school, went on to full scholarship to Fisk in engineering. And this month here was his first month back. His first comment was, he didn't realize how much he missed the group and is so glad to be received by those that have always welcomed him. So it gave him a sense of belonging. And so we're excited about that inclusion. Again, for the month of March, our topic across all of the network groups was on soft skills development. And I just want to give a shout out. You're going to see some of the photos, the screenshots that will be presented. You're going to see an ongoing presence of Mr. Darius Spurlock, who was our presenter. Again, Darius has already highlighted some of the CASC outreach, but we are so excited to partner with our field outreach staff and engage them even in our network groups. Next slide, please. And so again, some snapshots from each group. This is our orientation. Again, outside of our standing monthly meeting for each discipline, we still hold our orientation on the first Monday of the month. These photos here kind of depict the activity. Totally, for the month of March, we served 64. That came about as a result of Louisiana Tech inviting us to their spring nursing convocation. Again, Louisiana Tech has an associate nursing program there. And so we were excited to, again, expand our reach to yet another post-secondary institution. Again, with our orientation, we're getting invites from professional volunteers that want to know how can they extend their expertise to support our students. And so we have these professional volunteers attending our orientation as well with our students. Next slide. Again, with our engineering, we were so excited, beyond March was a month of so many awareness issues, one in particular, Women's History Month. So in engineering, there's a shortage of female engineers, but we were privileged to have joining us Natika Anderson, a mechanical engineer. And what was significant about her presence, we have one female student that makes up our group. And you guys should have seen the reaction that student had in just hearing Natika's story and just seeing that connect that was formed as a result of our network group. Next slide, please. Our MJ Foster program, again, this was highlighted in other areas. Marsha Bearden, who's our student engagement specialist for the MJ Foster program, she partners with CASC and Scholarship in implementing that. Our meetings are held on the third Thursday. What's so privileged about this, when students are not able to attend on that third Thursday, for those students who are not only MJ Foster Promise recipients, but they are nursing majors or ITCIS majors, they have that option of toggling between one or both of those groups during the month. Next slide, please. With our accounting and finance, and again, we meet jointly with our ITCIS, since there is a symbiotic relationship between these two disciplines. We were just so overwhelmed by the presence of volunteers, that professional volunteers that availed themselves in some deep thought and conversation with our students. So we are just so excited with that growing potential there. Again, our partners from LHC Group still avail their personnel to be present for as many meetings as they are possible. So we're just excited with that continued outreach there. You're going to hear much more about that partnership as we continue to work in expanding it. Next slide. So for our post-secondary network group, again, this is one that I explained last month, that we moved from the evening time to in-school time on the fourth Friday of each month. And on this particular screenshot, what was so overwhelming for me, so gratifying and so affirming, was the fact that in that shot, you're going to see a representation of students, their parents, their school administrators. We had some principals joining on, and employers, all engaged in this post-secondary network group. So you can imagine the vast array of conversation. Again, we're still growing it to make sure that as many of our districts are aware, so that they can avail that time to their students while they're on their clock. And so I just am so ecstatic with the potential. Our newest student engagement specialist, content specialist, Miss Khadija Kamara, facilitates that, along with Danita Brown from the Field Outreach Services. And so they are doing so exceptionally well with just the content of that network group. I think we have one more slide. Oh, no, got two more. Sorry about that. So let's talk about our engagement app. Can you go back one, please? Going back one, another, okay, go forward one. Another representation of the cross-divisional collaboration that LOSFA is priding itself on. You've heard us mention about the Gardeer initiative. And so, and even though this is a February activity, by the time that we had our last month, we had not had this event. So we wanted to include it in this report. But captured here is Khadija Kamara, Darius Spurlock, and Ebony Mitchell doing the final of a three-part series that we had been engaging with the Gardeer initiative in growing a college-going culture among their youths that they serve. So out of this event, they presented the Unlock My Future platform and engaged with them on how to navigate that and discover career pathways and so to sort. So we also are excited about having outreach to these community-based programs where they have graduating seniors or secondary students. They also refer them into our post-secondary transition student network group. Next slide. So this is a community event that LOSFA has participated, I'm told, in years past. I had the privilege of attending what was massive in the Acadia Parish. This is something they do annually, a youth summit, whereby they bring in over 300 individuals, students, again, parents, but connected with elected officials. In this event, LOSFA partnered with UL's Assistant Director of Finance, talking about, post-secondary information. SLCC was present as well. And so even though the audience was mostly middle school students, it was a good way to get that information early on, to get them thinking about post-secondary pathways. Next slide. Oh, I must want to add also at this event, you can't see it on the slide, but this Acadia Parish was instrumental in bringing in all 100 members of the 100 member marching band from St. Augustine's High School in New Orleans to participate throughout their program. So that was very, very, very exciting event there. In this particular photo, we, student engagement, attended NSU's Inside View Day, a day that they invite high school students throughout Louisiana to get an insight of what this university offers them. So again, it was another way for us to promote LOSFA programs, connect students that were transitioning with our network, but also to help NSU answer financial aid questions with regards to the, particularly the parents. We did outside of this browse session, we did a breakout with just being available for any parents that had questions. And again, very confirming, a lot of parents are still needing assistance on reading their SAR, student aid report, and just being able to ascertain cost of college and what the debts that family would look like. So was excited to take part in that event there. This is truly the last slide. Next one. So you've heard us talk about the LinkedIn, and it's so affirming that we are one step closer to launching it. In fact, in April, we will be. We spent the month of March making sure students who had not had a LinkedIn account, that they started one, and how rightfully so, with regards to us trying to connect them to their professionals, to other professionals, connect them to career. We're seeing that this is a likely platform to connect students. Again, this came at the request of the students seeking to be connected with each other outside of the 1 hour per night, per month engagement activity that we're currently having. So we're excited to see what this social media platform can do to further strengthen our students' social networks and professional network. Thank you. I think that's all. Any questions you all have? I know it's kind of lengthy, but this is what we're doing.
Questions, comments? Thank you for all you're doing.
Glad you're back on the ground.
Okay, next we have Dr. Cobb, Field Outreach Services.
So on the left side of the screen, this is the continuation of what we've been reporting on. So this is Louisiana Tech University for their initiative, ACT Prep. So in these three schools, Neville High School, Carroll High School, and Baxter High School, and two of those schools, Neville and Carroll, are in Monroe, and Baxter, but all on that I-24 and 4 in New York. So they actually took this ACT Prep to the schools, and 119 students actually participated in this, and they had, the instructor was really great about making sure they had hands-on activities, and also spend some time with, just talking about Louisiana Tech as well, making sure that they knew that Tech was actually on their campus, which, differentiated the ACT experience from others, because this is an institution that's coming to you. Which that's important, because in times past, we've had students who, apply to institutions and they come back and tell us, well, I don't believe that they want me because I haven't heard them. So this is Tech coming to me, coming to the students, saying, hey, we care about you, we want you, and we're also giving you some ACT prep. So on the right side of the screen, we do outreach with middle school and high school students. And this was an innovative approach. Scotlandville, the engineer Mag, actually did a campus visit to LSU. And we support a lot of campus visits. So there are standards that the schools have to actually adhere to when it comes down to a campus visit, making sure that they know how to go, they know the academic requirements with that, but also the supportive services, and actually do some college student shadowing, if possible, when they actually go to those campuses. So in addition to that, the students were able to, have lunch, at Drusilla, which that's not a bad meal. They do really well over there. And learn about financial literacy. So, hey, I can go to an institution and I'm actually coming back and doing financial literacy while eating. So that was Scotlandville's approach to it. Next slide. So as you know, we do professional development a couple of times a year. This was our year of professional development. It was the last one we're actually doing with this grant. It was actually done via webinar, And INSEP, who is the National Council for Community Education Partnerships, they technical assistance for all Bureau grants. You know, we partner with them on this. They organized it, and so our guest speakers, one was Dr. Wendell Hall, which he absolutely phenomenal when it comes to equity of access. So he was our keynote. So he was a national speaker, but we also had Courtney Martin, who is, she goes by the name of the ACT Prep Queen. I actually had a chance to sit in her session at the ACT Council Summit that we had a couple months ago. And during her session, it was so interactive. I wanted to make sure that we could invite her in to talk to our students. Her approach to ACT Prep is different in that she looks at raw score. So if you want a 20 or 21, 28, how many questions do I need to answer correctly? And the approach of, okay, so you made this, you know, score, which means you got this many right. Okay, so you made this score, you need 3 more questions, you need 4 more questions. Don't just go question to question, go to the ones you know. So that's so beautiful, and the school starts so as well. So you had Dr. Wendell Hall setting the stage, talking about what's one in terms of equity of access, the national landscape. He connected it to the Louisiana Prospers and Go, the Momentum Summit. He talked about all of that. And so he talked about basically what the schools could do in their setting to impact Louisiana as a whole. That's very important as we talk about sustainability of the programming, you know, after this year. So on either side of this slide was, you know, very telling to me in terms of, okay, so on one side, so what in one word describes the impact Europe has had for your students? And on the other side, what impact has it had for me? What does it mean? And as you can see on both sides, support, right? So I'm really proud of the team work they've done. So students said support, providing opportunities and exposure. So that's what the school staff believe that this means to the students. So what does it mean to the actual people in the buildings, you know, the school staff, the district staff? So again, support, providing guidance and informative, you know, information. So just wanted to put that out there. I thought that was really big having support on this. Next slide, please. And for this slide, on the left side of the screen, I know I've reported on this in the past. Every year we have to do an annual performance report, which is a summative report, going over the year before's data. What did we do? What kind of outcome, performance indicators, how do we do with our year up grant the year before? And this particular report is important because that's what guarantees the next year's funding. So with this, while we're in our 7th year, there are other programs who maybe in year 1, maybe just got a grant 2, 3, 4. So let's actually reached out to me and say, hey, you come into our back office meeting and provide some technical assistance, provide some insight on the APR. This was important because the APR in 3.1, this was actually done on 3.7, so they gave them some early on information on how to come and walk them through the portal, just answer some questions on how to get this report done. And you know, since then, you know, INSEP has provided some technical assistance for them. So it's just a well-rounded approach to get this report done, which is due this month on the 18th. We're working on it now. On the right side of the screen, we want to give a huge shout out to Miss Shelby Wright of Wasson High School. Wasson is in Monroe, in the district of Monroe City. She's an amazing young lady. She and her mom, see the quotes here from she and her mom. She's actually finishing her high school diploma with an associate's degree from LDCC. with, it's a general studies associate's degree, but it's the concentration is in natural sciences. And as you can see, she actually wants to go on to become an anesthesiologist. In the table at the top, these are all the different types of support services that she's received over the years. And of course, you can provide all these services and put these for students, but for them to optimize that's something totally different. And guess what? She optimized those and she is absolutely doing amazing. So definitely want to give a big shout out to her and to her mom. And also Summer Clark, she's one of the regional coordinators who works with our program. She worked very closely with Shelby and her mom. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Questions, comments? All right. Next, let's go to the grants. Morning, everyone. Last week, Monique Aaron, one of the auditors, and I presented at the LCTCS School on the Summit, and we talked about Top State Early Start. I had a lot of discussion regarding that, and we also shared tips for how to go through a successful Top State Early Start audit and the application and so forth. That was last week. Next slide. Also, last week, participated with the Louisiana Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators Spring Conference. Myself, along with Brittany Terrio, who is the MJ Foster Specialist, and Jessica Lee, who is a specialist on the TOPS Awards renewal side, provided information at the mid-level training track, covering TOPS, MJ Foster, as well as the computer screen. Next. Okay, the Louisiana Gold Grant, I do have some updated figures regarding that. Total allocation was $55 million. I'll start with Southeastern. Everyone's heard about their issues with their system. I think that started back in February, maybe. So they are, I spoke with Brad earlier this week. They were able to submit their billing, which is 2.8. They had a remaining allocation of $3 million. So they're spending 280,000 of it. That's going to process it. Also, Grambling has requested an extension, so they have 108,000 that's outstanding. That's also going to process this week. So our remaining allocation is really 5.2 million, and that is before the Southeastern and the Grambling amounts come out. So it'll be a little bit over 2 million that'll be left, which we went from 40 million. 5 million. We work with the schools throughout. Many of the schools had to revise their packaging policies to be able to expend the money and expand the pool and that sort of thing. On the community college side, we do have 2 schools that have a significant amount that they weren't able to award. BRCC 210,000 in Central Louisiana, Community College 85,000. These are just round numbers since here. On the Lake Coop side, Louisiana Christian University, 183,000, and Franciscan brand new, 119,000. And brand new, we work with them extensively, and they were like, we have to give the money to everybody on this campus who is eligible to receive it. So, and they're giving out the maximum award. So, everybody got a proportionate increase in Gold Grant funding. But with the population, as particularly our private schools, some of them don't qualify. They don't have a lot of students that qualify. So we're going to be reallocating the additional funds to those schools who build on time. We had several that did. So we're working on that process. The deadline to make corrections from bills that may have not transmitted all the way through
is next week, so we'll be working on getting that done to reallocate the remaining funding. So it's really, it's gonna be less than 3 million when all is said and done.
Will that go to the summertime?
No, Go Grant is not available currently during the summer, Ms. Lawson, but we do have schools that have a wider band of students who are eligible, so they've already identified those students, so they can go back and make the awards to those students to expand the remaining funds. John R. Justice, we're in the application phase for our public defenders and prosecutors. So those are the applications that we've received, 8 on public defenders, so we give out 5 awards. On the prosecutor side, we give out 10 awards and receive 15 applications. They can apply through the end of April. And those awards have been significantly increased, from 39,000 this past year to 86,000. So public defenders will get like a little bit over 8,500, 8,400, and the prosecutors getting 4,200. Which goes toward their outstanding student loan indebtedness, which is a big, boost for that. Next, MJ Foster, Ebony provided some information about students and how that process worked. We have so far as April, earlier this week, 6,400 applicants, 3,200 were eligible, 2,700 were waitlisted. Were funding, I'm sorry, and then 487 waitlists. So the wait list went down significantly because those students who had not enrolled by January 30th, but out of those students who were off the wait list, some have reapplied, which brings a new cancellation total to 1,317. So we're continually working with our partner schools in the LCT system, as well as Southern Shreveport and LSU on MJ Foster. The new challenge grant update, we've given awards to 12 recipients. I think we have 1 more that's going to process on today. So that's $32,905. Any questions?
Reference to the MJ Foster. So the deadline of January 30th, was that for the 20, which award?
That was for the students who initially applied when we started back in July, they had not enrolled. So because they didn't enroll, they were holding the spot, they were moved off the eligible list. And so now they can reapply because they may have decided not to enroll that time, or they could find a program or whatever issues they're going to school by January 30th, which means they had the whole fall and then up until January 30th in the spring. So we've seen them reapplying now, but they can get money.
And for the upcoming award year, do you have a date? Students have to have an application.
Well, they get the FAFSA is open now, so they should be filling those out and getting on the list.
And the reason for my question is, with my institution, it is proprietary, so we do have a smaller pool. I'm seeing that a lot of our students are eligible, but they're on the wait list. So is there like a suggestion that I can do to help them in essence too?
Well, the wait list, there's one for the public and then one proprietary. And proprietary, your funding amount is much smaller. So that's why your wait list is going to be longer because you only have $500,000 for that. So that, whereas the 10 million on the public school side. So more students on the proprietary side who are applying are on the wait list because of the funding that's available for that program. And then 2, it's $6,400 over 3 years, but the student goes into a high cost program that's short term, they can use that whole amount. So they're saying, I want to be a CDL driver. That's like $6,400 on the public side. And so they're on the waiting list, they're holding that money until they enroll, which increases your wait.
So it's really not a time that I can have or assist my students in applying.
As soon as they really want to go to school and fill out the FAFSA for the NJ funds.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good question.
Other questions?
When's the next deadline, like January, but is it like July?
For the
Is that
next
one?
Okay, I'm gonna say purge, but
Yes,
it's time
yes.
to update the list. Yeah.
In July, is there an exact date for July?
I can text Brenda and get the exact date.
Okay.
So basically they have 6 months essentially to fund the program and to enroll or else you just off
and then
until,
get back on.
to let some of her waitlisted people go into. I got it.
That actually leads me to an additional question. So my students that are on the wait list, once you do complete the purge, are those students on the wait list, are they being removed from this as well? Do they have to?
They have to say, yeah, and so out of the eligible students, 1,415 who had their award canceled, enrollment, 44 of those students have reapplied already. But they were given, email notifications and workshops and a lot of opportunity to let them know that to move on.
Right.
They don't occur at student,
No, there's no penalty. They can get right back into it. Once they're canceled. Now I found out where I want to go. I don't have infinite amount of time. I never see sites and go there.
And I have.
No problem. Let's get over here.
Students that are on the wait list, I know that I'm able to submit grades for those students, however, not payment requests. Can I submit those students' grades because they are in a program and they are eligible, it's just no funds available? And then once the list gets purged, those students then move into the eligible status, or?
We only request, once they've been funded, then we're required grades for continuation. So there would really be no need to submit the grades in advance of them being funded, unless they were getting something else like TOPS. They would require the grades for that criteria side. So otherwise, they're not getting TOPS, and they're just waiting on MJ Foster funding. Once they get funded, then the grades are required to continue. Whether they're just doing it one time or whatever, they may decide to go one term and then sit down. We'll need those grades because they may come back later and say, oh, I want to go back and get J. Foster funding, and we'll just determine if they be staff.
Just so that you're clear about it, the no funds available, because that is a term, that's a theme. But when that occurs is when a student is eligible and they could get money. They're not on the wait list. But let's say that student did have TOPS, or let's say that students, that this is not as likely at a proprietary institution. Let's say that students' costs were covered by their Pell Grant and any other award they had, their tuition fees, without their cost of attendance. Then the school would be required to report them as no funds available. And that is so that we can show policymakers, okay, you had this many students that were eligible to receive funds, right? And this is a last dollar program. This many students could have gotten it, but under last dollar, they can't because their costs were covered by other types of aid. So that's a very critical reason that we're tracking that. So yes, if your students are funded and receiving dollars, but they couldn't, they're eligible to receive dollars, but they couldn't because their costs were covered, which is less likely for you, then yes, you would submit those as no funds.
Actually, thank you so much for sharing that. We have a lot of students that do receive additional grants, several different ones where it covers the Pell as well. And I'm sorry, the Pell and the additional grant covers the cost of tuition, but that's definitely.
Any questions? Thank you. For your questions and comments also give you a lot of information that are helpful as well. Thank you. Now we move on to the legislative update.
I passed out, handing out for all of y'all. As you see, there are many bills for LOSFA for a fiscal session. Fiscal sessions in general are supposed to be bills about funding, money, and taxes. Each legislator only has 5 additional that don't have to do with those core subjects to file. And so this is a lot, given it's a fiscal session. I'm just going to run through these real quick. The ones that were filed, these are the ones that affect the programs we administer. There are, of course, others that are going to affect, retirement of employees and, our administrative procedures and things like that. I will be adding SB 201
thinking about it, Senator Hewitt has filed a bill regarding open meetings law. Excuse me. So that will be a particular interest to this group. But HB 103 and HB 118 both require some sort of financial education while students are in high school. 103 adds a full core course to the OPH course, so it would go from 19 to 20. For the question about this? Yes. All right, so if they the financial literacy course, it goes from 19 to 20, but then it says it's a required course and reduces the number of math electives from 1 to 2. And that was supposed to say for TOPS Tech.
okay.
For students in the TOPS Tech pathway. So what they're, if I understand this correctly, pushing for is to have the 4 maths that would normally be on top score, plus the additional financial literacy as a standalone for the OPH, yes. Right. And for the tech core, it's you must have financial literacy, and then you will have that other elective piece.
Difference between these two and the other financial literacy laws on the books, like what? Are they just nuanced?
The other financial literacy laws on the books are high school requirements.
Okay.
So and they don't have anything to do with TOPS.
Okay.
So
this is tied.
Yes. Okay. HB 118 differs slightly because it increases both the OPH core and the tech core by a half a unit. And it requires a half credit course in personal financial management in social studies. You know, I don't know which one of these will pass. We will certainly watch them. If they both pass, we're going to have a conflict. So hopefully they can get together and decide which one they want to run with. HB 164 reduces the minimum ACT for TOPS Tech from 17 to 15 beginning this year. HB 167 provides a tuition waiver for disabled veterans. And if a person's qualified for TOPS, they would get a book stipend. And much like we do for National Guard recipients, if a student is in the National Guard and is awarded TOPS, they get a book stipend of $1,600. And if they're also eligible for performance and honors, they get an additional $800 or $1,600. This bill basically does the same thing for disabled veterans.
So this is strictly for
it. Yes, that's how the bill currently reads. Yes. Can we go back to 164 for just 1 second, where this says from 17 to 15 with this year's graduates? Is that possible to process? Will that, if it passes, because will there be enough time for that to work out? That would be a question for our IT director. Okay. I don't know how long it would take to program this.
Actually, I think it's a question for DOE. Because you know, we update the reference tables, thank you all the calculations. For us, each year we create in our rules engine what the rules are for, you know, the eligibility. The bill is the ACT.
You were asking about the ACT.
I am
the one that says it'll be
the ACT. You know, I'm sorry about that. No, wouldn't be an issue. It's just changing it from 17 to 15, you know, average, what we call our rules engine.
Okay.
Robin, for that particular one too, wasn't that bill similar a bill last year, Robin?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought I remember the last year too.
I can't get the words out today.
Representative Cox on it.
It's just saying, okay, so I'm saying one, each trying it again. Got it.
Okay, HB 219 deletes the requirement that a student file the FAFSA or be required to file the FAFSA for TOPS. Has nothing to do with high school graduation at this point. This is just TOPS apprehension. HB 327 provides that a student can meet the Louisiana residency requirement if they graduate out of the country. If their parents were Louisiana residents prior to going out of the country for 24 months. This provision was in the law before they broke TOPS out into multiple statutes in 2015. This provision was inadvertently left out. And so Representative Zuba has decided that he wants to put it back in. And it's retroactive to 2015. Just so that y'all are aware, we've had made 5 students since 2011. So there's not a at all. See, HB 485 is a new program. Per this bill, it is to be administered by the Board of Regents, but we were asked to put together some information by the board if we were to run it. It pays for mandatory fees at public only post-secondary institutions. You have to be a member of the National Guard, enrolled in a public post-secondary institution, and eligible for the National Guard tuition waiver. So basically what the bill does is expand on that current tuition exemption to provide fees. However, this bill is subject to appropriation of funds for this purpose. The regular tuition waiver is not subject to appropriation of funds. So that's the difference in funding for those two. Then we have 2 MJ foster promise bills. SB 120 eliminates the cap on the proprietary schools. So the entire 2.5 million would be available for both proprietary schools and public 2 years. SB 204 by Senator Hewitt makes a lot of changes. We have worked very closely with Dr. Cable on these. So it changes the program from last dollar to first dollar. It allows for payment of tuition fees, books, and instructional materials, not just tuition and fees. It also provides that a student who is otherwise eligible but has not filed the FAFSA may receive one payment before filing the FAFSA. So that would mean a student who is in an eligible program of study and they've met all of the other eligibility requirements, residency, no criminal history, or no crime of violence, all of those different eligibility matters, then they could receive one payment.
And in order to continue, they have to
file that if they're in an eligible program.
How many payments are there?
Like, they can get paid up to $6,400. That's the maximum over a 3-year period. Yes.
So if I come in late at the last minute for all my stuff and it's required, and the only thing I can have that on my FAFSA, I can at least get my initial payment and then. Will they be receiving any notice saying, hey, you got this first payment, but you still need to do?
Yes, okay, of course. The bill eliminates the community service apprenticeship mentorship requirement. So students would no longer be able to require that. When we first did the rules, we had to go to the joint budget for approval. This would make that the only time we have to go to joint budget for approval of the rules, which is how it is for all of our other programs. We do not have to go to joint budget for the other programs. It eliminates the working group that Ms. Malvo worked really hard on to establish those wraparound services for students. But we now have 211, and all those wraparound services are in 211. So what this does is this puts all of those responsibilities under the advisory council, because my understanding is those members were already part of Governor's Subcabinet. The majority of them are. Yeah. And so they already had a group where all of those folks met, and this was kind of superfluous. And then it adds the reporting requirements, number of students who don't qualify for federal aid, number who are unable to complete the FAFSA, number enrolled in each program of study that's eligible. And then they want that broken out by credit or by non-credit. And then they want the number of hours to complete the credit courses and length of time to complete non-credit. And then the cost of each eligible program. Okay. So we have a Start K-12 bill, which aligns the Start K-12 tax deduction with that START. So START has been $2,400 for single, $4,800 for married filers jointly. K-12 has been up to now $1,200 and $2,400 respectively. They're increasing that to $2,448. We have an ABLE bill, which it's SB 30, which prevents the Medicaid clawback that is allowed in federal law. What that basically says is that when a account owner / beneficiary dies, the state can't come in and take the rest of that money for Medicaid that they have paid or not paid. It also provides that those amounts can be transferred to the disability services for services to be provided to those who fit those circumstances. I put some fiscal note information on here for y'all. All of these are what our fiscal note says. Only one of them has a fiscal note on by the LFO at this point. Most of them are $3,312 for rulemaking. And of course, that's going to be less because we'll combine rulemaking. We won't do one individual rulemaking for each bill. But let's see, once HB 164, which increases the ACT, that could be a cost anywhere 1.36 to 2.65 million. And that's just going to depend on the number of students that actually accept it and go to school. 167, that's based on the historical information that we have for National Guard recipients. There's no other way to guesstimate that number. So approximately $90,000 or less. HB 219 with eliminating the FAFSA, would not think that would incur a lot of cost, but it's going to require a lot of programming, a lot of new agreements, a lot of storage space. So all of those costs are listed out there for y'all.
Yeah, just so that you all know, that is a verification issue. Because as you know, students right now do not have to file the FAFSA for TOPS. They can file the online application for TOPS if they're not interested in any form of federal aid, including federal student loans, or they can file the FAFSA. So you have that number of students, which is a little bit around maybe 100. Let's say you've got maybe 100 students doing the online application. Okay. The majority of your students are doing the FAFSA. Residency, citizenship, selective service before, no criminal convictions before, all of that is verified by bouncing those records off the FAFSA. So one could say, well, you do that right now for the online application for TOPS. Okay, so 130 to 40,000.
Right.
That is not a sustainable manual process. And we would assume that you want students to get their award before they're purged. And so that is why you're seeing because unless we're going to be given a hall pass for the verification of those things. If you wanted to say a student can self-certify, you put the little threatening statement at the bottom, going, I certify this is true, and you say something that makes them want to do that, then we would have to have programming to have a source to verify things that the FAFSA did verify. So that is why you're seeing those particular costs.
This is what you guys did before the mandate or the requirement of the FAFSA was this whole process that you're discussing, right? Like for those students that applied.
Now, this isn't a change. Before the FAFSA was the FAFSA was the means for applying for TOPS used by the majority of students before the Department of Education made it a graduation requirement. So it predates that significantly.
Yeah, if memory serves, the requirement that the student applied for federal grant aid before receiving TOPS has been in the law since the very first bill was filed in '97.
That's what I thought, but I was just wondering like if that would have.
Yeah, so this would eliminate that, but again, it is a verification issue. And it is also an issue that we're not putting a fiscal impact in there for, but we will have to significantly ramp up, I would say, the education efforts such that students, oh, okay, then I'm not going to file it. And when you get your fee bill, and when you see your bottom line and you don't see that other aid on there that you are not going to get if you didn't file the FAFSA, then, you know, we want to make sure that students and parents and families know if this passes, no, you don't have to. But if you want these things, and yes, we do have an education program out there now. When we heard, you know, some disgruntlement about, well, why do I have to file the FAFSA if TOPS is a merit-based program? My income has nothing to do with it. That is very true. But if you were interested in these other forms of aid, then the application for that is the FAFSA, and that's federal. So that's really why you're seeing these programming costs, to say we're going to have to verify it in a different manner.
Well, I mean, that right there, that's helpful for me when I explain it to them. It verifies it quicker. I mean, otherwise it may take longer to receive that aid. I mean, because you're gonna have to have the verification in, but if you do the FAFSA, it automatically would checks and balances.
Well, and we're clarifying, is it the intent that the student can't use it? Like, for example, right now, if you file the online application for TOPS, no one goes to make you file a FAFSA because you filed, right? But we have to make clear, if this bill passes, one way to interpret it is that, well, it's not the application for TOPS, but if you filed it, could it count? Or is it the strict interpretation that is, it is not the application for TOPS? So if you needed to file the FAFSA to file for TOPS, you need to file the online application as well. So we want to confirm whichever intent that would be.
So because the FAFSA is required for high school graduation, how does that, well, I'm like, where is it?
It's not required, you have an option.
You have an option,
Yes.
okay.
So you can complete the FAFSA, you can do a waiver, or you can do the TOPS form.
Online application for TOPS. So and again, that's a great question, because we've had people say, but no, this just doesn't.
We can't fill up your
It
there, you know, like.
doesn't do away with, so it's not gonna make a difference. It's like when the Department of Education did the policy, we worked with them to say, well, hey, you wouldn't want to tell the individuals that are filing the online application for TOPS that they have to do two forms, right? So the online application for TOPS satisfies the high school graduation requirement, because in that school of thought, it would be, well, but it's not going to make a difference because they still are going to have to fill it out for graduation. No, they wouldn't. If this passes, they would not have to fill out the FAFSA for graduation from high school because the online application for TOPS already counts to fill that requirement. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like it really won't make a difference in who fills it out because they gotta do it anyway. It's like, no, that was policy to say, why would we want to make them do 2 applications? Which most national research says they're not gonna do 2 applications. They're not.
And I was trying to keep up with who did one and who needs to do the other, and that's a nightmare too.
How are y'all verifying the information that you talked about earlier with those 100 applications? Like the citizenship and residency? Just
Certification
Okay.
only. There's an extensive certification page on the online application, so before they sign it, they have to say, I certify, too.
I thought you said that they do some documents. Like
It depends. It depends on what they situation.
I could see how you guys would want to be this like holder
And that's why I pointed that out. Yeah, I'm gonna have to upload that. If you are.
Or that would take.
Yeah.
And the programming to say, well, if you upload your social security card, okay, all right, is our system going to recognize that? And that's a different level of technology.
Yeah.
That your system's gonna recognize this and recognize this. So it does present some challenges for us in the verification, unless we say, lawmakers say you may have them certify, you may have them sign this, and there's a penalty of blank, blank, blank if someone finds out that you
That's not true.
didn't do the right thing, and so, yeah, so we will see.
So the next bill is the House Bill 327. That's the adding the residency back from 2015. Maximum cost is $28,000. And that's counting up to 5 that I told you about earlier. And then Senate Bill 204 is the J bill. Things follow the list of changes. We've got $120,000 on that for, I believe it was 120 hours at $100 an hour for the software.
And that's a time crunch issue too, if that is signed, and that has to be done. That's, yeah.
Do I have any additional questions about those bills? That this runs until June,
June 10th. Class 6 p.m. I'm sorry. Not 10. June 8th by 6 p.m. They have the music. Yeah, it starts April 10th.
Well, aren't we glad this is a just going session?
There's a lot of things to say.
Well, and because it just is this way, the fiscal only, and then this was by design, remember, now they're all running for reelection. In the fall, every single legislature is running for reelection in the fall, so they've got to get all with using their 5 bills to get in, and then, of course, next year, but after they're elected, they'll all have to file their bills because it can be a non-fiscal session. But this is the,
I just remember last year was 1 page with like 5 that we've done, and then this is like 3 pages with a lot more details. And I don't remember all of those bills getting before. I don't know if you know this, how many, this is,
Usually most of them go before the committee.
There have been a few times where we have been able to sit down with the authors and provide them with information and what their bill is actually going to do, and they have not approved their bills. So, whether there's any appetite to sit down with us so we can provide them with information ahead of the session or ahead of the bill being heard.
we won't know unless we get a call from either the legislator or their staff or education center.
That's really our position. We don't, our position is that we don't take a position on the bills. We simply provide the information about the implications. This, what would that mean? You do this, what would that mean? And what would that, what would be the ramifications of that? That is our role. And we've been very successful in that role, in that what we found is the result of that is if a staffer or a member wants information, then they're more likely to go to a source that they know isn't on this side or this side, but it's just, my job is to give you the information that shows you both sides, and then you do whatever it is you think is the best course of action. We will answer any questions you have. And in some instances, they will consolidate. It just depends on your committee chair and hear all the TOPS bills in one day. So,
Which would be fantastic.
you know, you're not.
So it depends on the week, but like if they make a decision on randomly picking a date, might be a weekend, but for May 25th, and if they, do we have to wait till after June 8th, or is it immediate? Okay. So here's what happens. Once it is approved by the House and the Senate, or vice versa, wherever the originated, it has to go to the governor. And he has to sign it, or he can let time pass. That time period is different depending on whether they're in session or out of session. So that's an impossible question. It can pass, something could pass on May 29th. Any day, just a straight day, and he could sign it immediately, and it will be effective immediately. Even
if that was the way it was written.
Because some bills say effective upon signature of the governor. Some of them say, for example, one is retro to 2015. One or two of them, the ones adding financial literacy, those aren't going to be effective until 27, 28. Some of them say they will be effective once the expiration of time as defined in the Constitution for bills to become law. That's August 1st. So the signature of the governor is in most cases, unless he allows the time to pass and doesn't veto it, then it would also.
But we have a team member in Bradshaw that works with us and tracks them.
Yes.
So we will be able to keep you updated. We have a chart. It's like we're watching, where's that bill, what happened. So we know if something is scheduled, not scheduled, or just parked out there, as Robin said, and not coming to the beginning.
But we'll know about this update as it, all these, as it goes. Okay. I just bringing up questions that I've never even considered before, because like I said, last year it was like 5 and they were pretty easy to kind of follow. These are like pretty detailed. Yes.
And these bills also, that's what I said, they have a very long way to go. So, but as soon as final passage is, I'll send that out to the counselors, whatever, you know.
I'm curious about things that affect us directly, because there is scheduling issues, and when in the 27, 28, they're going to be coming in with what's happening there. We need to make sure that we have teachers that are trained and that are certified in these areas. Like all of that's kind of spinning in my head at this point, even though it may not be, active until then. We have several of those that have, from last year that we're having to try to figure out this year.
But one of the financial literacy bills actually tells you in the bill exactly what's got to be enforced, like what you have to, what the force has to cover.
And then I heard you say something about like it affects the high school graduation requirements, and I was like, wait a second, now I need to go find out what those are, because I mean, that type of stuff, it affects, and if I think there was something that I don't know how you say, approved or something, and then the Department of Ed did not have it yet. They were meeting in January, but I contacted them to see where is that written. Well, it's not on their website yet, but it's the geometry thing, we know that is, but can't find it in writing, but I know it's there, and so I'm trying to talk to people. So that's why the real reason behind the question is, where can I find this when it's said and done, which will be you're gonna update it, so.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it is HB 103, I'm looking it up right now, that gives the full list of what's required.
It probably is, because this is a more detailed than just, hey, you need to have a financial literacy, like, it's kind of spelled out how somebody has thought this all the way through, like, they've discussed it, because, yes, it is, the House Bill 103, the very first one. There is a list of, let's see, A through N. No, M, of things that the course is to cover. Thank you. Any more questions?
Question? Sir? Anybody wants to be?
Right.
Well, I know that you have a lot of expertise here, but should you use help and what to call these? Well, should it be? All right, moving, that's it for that. Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Moving on, then we have the executive director's report.
Yes, this is gonna be on the TOPS update, and I want to give tremendous credit to Connor, Shauna's out today, Robin, Brett, this entire team for working on the statistics for TOPS, because this is basically where we're updating policymakers to answer questions like, oh, I see the TOPS is not using the amount of dollars that it has used in the past. Why is that? It's very critical that policymakers have in-depth information about that, because as you know, TOPS is funded and our projection model runs on a 5-year average. So just because a thing happened 1 year and 2 years doesn't mean that trend is going to continue. So this is kind of a living, breathing animal as we look to take a deep dive to see what is happening and make sure that policymakers understand that. So we're going to tag team this. Connor, who said is here with us today to talk about the data. Brett's going to talk about where the dollars stand at this point in time, and Robin's going to tell you the impact of anything that you see that a student could get an exception for, because there are a couple of things that you see that are impacting students that as advisory board members, you need to know a student could get an exception for that for TOPS. Okay, so we want to start with.
Sure. The fiscal TOPS update is a handout this month. We have spent 85% of the TOPS allocation as of now, compared to 92% at this time last year. Most of the major universities have sent in their invoices for the fall and spring, so this is an apples to apples comparison. The numbers are going to change, but for both years by about $5 million due to summer school and just late billings. But the variance is going to be pretty close to this $24 million that we're showing right now. We talked before about some of the reasons for declines. High school graduation rates are, actually graduated rates are smaller than the 4th year in a row. And the acceptance rates for those who qualify for TOPS have declined 6 years. So if we know this, why have the TOPS projections been overstated 2 years in a row? Last year was the first year of overall TOPS declines since the early 2000s. We weren't sure if this was going to be a blip or the new norm. So we requested steady state funding for TOPS, even though we were pretty sure there would be another few years decline. So while it's a little embarrassing to give back $27 million this year, it's not as embarrassing as it would have been to West an additional $27 million this year. So we did take a closer look at the projection model and tweaked it to make it a little more accurate. Projection tool does a great job at estimating which current TOPS recipients are going to be there next year. It's the incoming class that's always the question mark. So we still assume 1% increase in high school graduation rates, and that's based on information that we received from the LDOE. That has been overstated the last few years since high school classes have been declining. We do use a 5-year average for data points like percentage of TOPS eligibles and acceptance rates. So during periods of year-over-year declines, those assumptions will be overstated. So we tweaked the model a little bit so that we wait the last couple of years, more than we do the 3 prior years. So it's lowered the projections closer to reality. We are aware that there's some conservatism still with the model, and we like it that way. I don't want to miss by $27 million ever again, but if I miss by 3 million, I want it to be over instead of under. So there's still a small amount of conservatism. There's no questions. Any questions?
So at the tail end of last year, we decided to embark on a little journey. We wanted to compile a comprehensive enrollment data set over the past 7 years. And these are the results. So of the 272,000 that we processed for TOPS eligibility over those years, 181 really were eligible for a TOPS award. And we know 70% of these TOPS eligible students accept their award. So we paid those, we know where they went, we can track them. But we really wanted to know where the 30% who did not accept the award went. And that's why we did the study. So 15% of those didn't show up in any enrollment data set, be it our statewide data sets or national data sets with the NSC or National Student Clearinghouse. And then only 156 of them showed up in BOR's non-credit database. 14% of those went out of state. And then a vast majority of those still stayed in Louisiana and enrolled in a Louisiana post-secondary institution. And so that's what we look at in the next slide. We break that down further. Next slide, please. So of those 39,000 students, a majority of those were just enrolled less than full time. So since they went part-time, they didn't qualify for TOPS and they didn't accept. 12.9% of those enroll after that 1-year deadline of high school graduation. And then 28.5% of those enrolled in a non-tech eligible program because they were eligible for TOPS Tech, but they had enrolled in, let's say, an academic program, and they didn't qualify for the scholarship at that point. Any questions about the data?
The Board of Regents non-credit data,
Yes.
that's only 2. It's very short, like that, they haven't started collecting that very much, so that's not a lot of data.
Yeah, we got that very recently.
Okay, all right, I'll just make sure, so that 1% in theory could be higher, but Board of Regents doesn't have all of that information.
They offered to run it against their data. Okay, that was their request.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
What is that Board of Regents non-credit data thing? Like what would that be for? What would they have?
Shorter term training program.
Okay, like those 8-week, 12-week kind of thing.
Like the ones that are eligible for education.
Yeah, so-
Okay, in high demand areas.
Yeah, well, I know for like LCTCF, like we've been tracking that non-credit, those completers, but we don't report those to Board of Regents. We just now started for Board of Regents, but what we reported at Board of Regents, I'm not there exactly how strong we do that, but.
While we're on this slide, I just want to point out that students can get exceptions to the fact that they only enroll part-time that first year or beyond that first year. They can get exceptions for that. They can request exceptions for not enrolling at all after that first year. And they can get exceptions for a TOPS Tech awardee who is enrolled in a different program. And some of these come to y'all, the students who are in a tech eligible, or who are not in a tech eligible program, come to y'all. But we have granted exceptions based on every reason we have. In fact, we've done parental leave, we've done temporary disability, we have done physical rehab, substance abuse rehab, death of a family member, military service. It just runs the gamut. So, just because they didn't necessarily accept that first year doesn't mean that they won't come back. And also, I just want to point out to y'all who may not know, if a student enrolls or joins the armed forces and goes on active duty within the first year after high school, they can come back 40 years from now
claim their TOEFL. Assuming that they met the eligibility requirements when they graduated from high school. So, you know, if they can go have a full military career, they can come back, decide they want a completely different direction, they can come back and claim their TOEFL. So, you know, we have, to my knowledge, we haven't seen any of those. I cannot say that I've seen any that have come back after either the first or second enrollment. Enlistment, not enrollment. Enlistment to do that. Yes.
So when you say when they're eligible, that they would have to meet the requirements that are there.
Yes.
Complete a TOPS application or the FAFSA, is that part of those requirements?
Yes.
So my students that are saying they're going to military, and then I'm explaining to them that, you know, this, and they say, no, I don't need to do that, I'll access this money later, but I can now tell them that even if you go active and you have more than just that 1 year.
Yes, well, and it's not only that, because they can get interned.
That's what
But
happened, you know.
I mean, that is the line that I don't know if you use it, but that is the line that I use to them, that, you know,
Not.
right, and I do tell them after you've done basic training, you've done AIT, you can still, because you can take classes online. I said, you can still take classes online, utilize your TOPS. But, you know, I do let them know that that is an option for them, that please don't think that whatever school that they tell you, you know, that you hear some fly-by-night school that you can use, please know that you can still use those Louisiana TOPS. I mean, your Louisiana schools, you can take online classes. If, you know, because you'll be taking online classes at whatever school you decide anyway, but please don't leave that money on the table. But, you know, I'm glad to know that now we can say that, you know.
That just gives us a little bit of more.
Oh, right, because I mean, I still tell them to do it, you know, in whatever the school you decide, please know, I don't want you to not leave that money there, but now.
Yeah, and that's still, I mean, they have to have been determined eligible.
Right, I mean.
When they graduated.
Right.
You can't come back, you know, 20 years and not even have filed the application.
And so they're
Or
not
taking the ACT.
Mm-hmm.
No, but so they're not confused. If that student is discussing that with you, and they say, but like an out-of-state student, we just had one that went out of state and said out of state all of the years of undergrad and came back and said, I want to enroll in graduate school in Louisiana, where's my TOPS? Well, they stayed out 8 semesters minus 8 semesters is 0 semesters. That does not apply to military. So it's not like, oh, well, you stayed out and you went into the military and you were gone for this many years, so we deducted. No. Their award is available.
So they have the.
Yes, they have.
No, I kind of noticed like it's one particular branch that like that the students are going into that's what they're telling me, you know, and so I kind of just, I want to make sure that I know that information, and I want to let everybody know, but I mean, one of the waivers that I filled out last year was because they're like, I don't know what it's called when it's your parent, the GI Bill, that's what they were gonna access, but I was like, but you also to be eligible for this, so you would have multiple, but again, it's helpful to know that information because I did have students that were injured and they were still able to access it because they did complete the FAFSA, so they were able to do everything they needed to do. And I just, knowing that information now just helps me, so thank you.
So in the next, any other comments or questions on this data? So the next slide, we break in. Next slide, please. Yeah. We break down where we found our 270,000 students. So we found 220,000 of them in our various state databases, primarily in our own database, because this is our easiest database to access. And then we had 85,000 in VOR's SSPS, which we get once a year. Another 375 from START, and then we had 1817 already run by our national database by previously. And so we sent 54,000 student records to the National Student Clearinghouse to run it with their national database. And once we had received that data, we merged all of the records from all of the sources into a massive file with about 3.9 million individual enrollment records. Yeah. And yeah.
Not to make friends.
It's data, it's about 12 gigs of just data. So it's 3.9 million enrollment records over like 30 or so columns. So this file takes a long time.
But do note the smile on his face, because we are very fortunate to have Connor as a member of the team, because data is something that Connor loves to do, and analytics is something he loves to do. And visualization is something that Ms. Estee loves to do, and Ms. Estee also understands the budget process and the legislative process, having worked for the division. So they make a very good team in conjunction with the CPA and an attorney when we're trying to do a deep dive into the data. So we're very proud of the tremendous amount of work that they have done and are doing. The Board of Regents has asked us to take they want to look at this from the perspective of, okay, we talked to you about 70% acceptance rates. The denominator in that is everybody that was eligible for TOPS and everybody that accepted it. What the Board of Regents wants to do is to say, okay, we would like you to isolate that, and then the denominator in those charts will be take the opportunity students, how many were eligible for opportunity, and out of those eligible for opportunity, how many accepted out of opportunity. Then take the same thing for performance, the same thing for honors, the same thing for tech. And using these, where did the 30% go? Do it the same way, you know, so that we can begin to see, are there differences in behaviors among different categories of awards? And so that is the part that Connor is actually going to be working on today, and actually is already on a preview of it, and very graciously walked me through it when I was it's very nice. So we appreciate this has been a tremendous effort.
And the Board of Regents still gonna have to do, or how does this interface with the Board of Regents require the Board of TOPS? They still do require the Board of
This is different from 1202,
right?
because this is basically, this is generated with LOSFA, saying, when we get ready to go into legislative session, if we are giving you back $27 million, or one year we had to ask for 15 million, that wasn't a happy year, right? That's a lot. It's for us that I would rather be over than under. And you know, they're going to ask. So what? Yes. And how does this happen? And where do they go? What do you know? So as a matter of practice, LOSFA does this every year. And we provided to our legislative stakeholders, we provided to those staffers as they're getting their budget presentations ready, we provided to the Board of Regents. Then of course, the Board of Regents as our parent agency has the ability to say, that's right, I would like to know this, right? And then of course, we do that. So that's what we're in the process of doing.
I wanna speak to this, the numbers of the graduates in the classes, because just as a counselor, like incoming classes, every year I look at my numbers. And so this year's freshman class went from the year prior, like about 100 to 120. 20 is a whole extra section that you have to schedule for, right? So then I go down to the 8th graders this year and I'm like 125. I was like, we're going up again. But we worked down, and I looked at the recession of like this 2008 recession, like when were these kids born? Like, and I'm like, oh, now we're going back up. The trend was down and now we're going back up. So I remember y'all talking about this last time. And then we were talking about the plan. I'm like, I see it in real time now, because I mean that's a whole extra section of a class. Like, which teacher is going to teach this? Like, it makes sense to me now. So when y'all are doing this, thank you. Like, I appreciate all of this, but also when you talk about the trends for 5 years here, there, what are we looking for? Like, it makes so much more sense now.
And again, that's why we said we do data and trends. This is great if you want to look in depth at this, but you still need to look at the trends, because what it is now doesn't mean that's what it's going to be within the next 2 years. And if you can't educate individuals about that, you run the risk of, oh, you don't need that money. Let's just go put it and fill a hole somewhere else. Well, what is going to happen when the need returns for those dollars. So again, the legislature is free to do what they see fit, but we have to be the voice of, I didn't say that it was going to continue like that in perpetuity, right? And you will see those trends before we will see those trends, because think about it, we're getting it'll be interesting to see if we can, Mary, get that beginning data, because we're looking at high school graduation data. You're looking at eighth graders and freshmen. And if you're seeing eighth graders and freshmen start to increase, how advantageous would it be for LOSFA to know that, while we're just looking right now at graduation classes, which means we're working 3-4 years behind.
Well, I know,
On
like,
data that you're already.
this year's graduating class that I'm gonna have, but well, next year, 2024, it's lower than what 2023 is.
So what you're
that's-
seeing coming in the pipeline, and so that does speak to us needing to see, is there a way to look at that pipeline data as we're doing 5 years out to go, whoa, that's where it is now, and maybe next year, but look at the wave that's coming right here. We know it's gonna start on the upswing. So that's something that
And I'm a rural, one school, one rural area, it's not even in the city or, anywhere else. Not, like I said, it's not all of them, but I mean, it matters with teachers, like, you have your teacher cuts, but now we may need another teacher, that type of thing, it's the same principle that you have.
phenomenal information.
Thank you. That's really great. Okay. So robust and. Over that. Top 10 out-of-state school. Mississippi. After that's University of Alabama. Yeah, and that's Mississippi. And then they're gonna debate, and people just, we know how sports run there. So this is really, really great.
Well, it's not sports anymore because I have friends that have a student going to a certain college in Mississippi. And they are now offering, like, this particular student has a 36 ACT score now. But not only did they offer her a full ride, but they also told her that they would match her top award amount that she got in Louisiana and give her funding for her top award if she would just show up at that school.
So, but the systems, when this was presented, this hasn't been presented in its entirety to the system heads, but they did request it when the commissioner brought it up at the March Board of Regents meeting. And one particular very large system said, we are seeing them match and give awards that fund cost of attendance as opposed to cost to attend. So again, that is the appropriate place for those discussions to begin, which is systems and then legislators, not us, but again, our job.
Because we're losing our information. We want them to stay, but our system here, I won't say, but they won't give our students anything. So you're giving them $500 for an alumni scholarship. I mean, how are we gonna tell them we want you to stay, but you won't give me any money? If they're giving me what I'm looking for, our systems do need to look at that.
So this will be very valuable to have. And they have indicated that they are wanting to receive it.
I can University of Alabama situation. I have a friend whose daughter is graduating this year, 30 on the ACT, AP scholar, full ride at Alabama, nursing, not gonna play sports, but I mean, that's what she wanted to pursue and that's what she was able to get. She's going there and that's graduating from here. One of those statistics, so as long as we don't have those conversations, it's probably gonna continue with those scholars.
Same story, was lost. My son went to Alabama, 30 ACT. They paid for everything except for his meal. The 30 ACT, right, and like a 3.3.
Yeah.
Tuition, like I can pay you.
Right.
and a laptop behind me.
Any other questions or comments?
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you. You have to get new glasses after all that.
Actually, I don't know, I was just, optometrist, remember this afternoon.
Anything else? That's it. Any other, okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to a new business. We have the TOPS exceptions. Does anybody have any questions about it? I thought they were great, but I would like Robin or the executive director to take just 30 seconds. Because this is another example of LOSFA going beyond the scope. One of my concerns was about the young dad, one person, number 4, who had read them, she had a horrible time, she talked about thinking about suicide every time that she went home.
Yeah.
So I, as I often do, I sent a note into Robin and Simona, said, can you tell me a little bit more about this from legal perspective, institutional perspective, whatever, and I like the response there, if you can share that with the group.
So we have actually had some cast staff speak to a student on the phone where they threatened, I just don't want to be here anymore, meaning on this planet. And they were able to talk to the student and explain to them, it's not the end of the world. Let me help you through this situation. We do that, and Ms. Malvo has been able to help students because we had an exception student that we referred to her, actually several that we referred to her because they could not afford counseling and they weren't currently in school. So they didn't have the option to go to the student health center. So, we try to give them all the resources that they could need. And, if an action seems imminent, we try and talk to them and get them, on a more level head before we let them go.
But having a social worker, and again, that's the diversity of the team, right? Diversity of expertise is critical because Ms. Malvo is a licensed social worker. And so therefore, you immediately, okay, I need you to do this and this as a student amenable to talking to me, and then was able to connect that student to resources, not only, something in our 211, but hey, this is what is available in your area. So we do try that. This is really what is meant by wraparound services. And which is why all of the research that you're saying says that it is the thing that students are looking for. And in many instances, the lack of it is the reason that they are either not enrolled or not staying. So we are barreling towards continuing to try to expand it.
So with that, does anybody have any concerns about the request for exceptions? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the exceptions.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Yes.
That's done.
It was one motion. Yes, second. Yeah, you almost. For the minutes. So I hear a motion to approve, seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good, so those are approved. Is there any other, we have any other new business? Next meeting date is May the 9th. Good.
So I know that's a Tuesday and not Thursday.
Right. So this is the last chance. I have a motion to adjourn. Oh, all right. Give me a second.
have city court today.
Well, Miss Mary is.
I'm glad. It'll get them too.